Our Devoted Marauders denied success in Tides of Torment. We're going back to basics with an eye toward Dechala and the Slaanesh roster generally. To mildly spoil, Dechala makes them tankier. Let's go into what these Marauders can do for you in their displays of battlefield devotion. Recruited for 450 gold and 112 upkeep, your basic Marauders for this roster come with 120 entities, 9,360 health, 15 armor and basic shields, blocking 35% of small arms missile fire from the front. Physical resistance starts at 5%. We're coming back to this later, don't worry. Leadership of 60 is our basic starting value. Speed 40 and Charge Speed 45 are improved thanks to the Mark of Slaanesh, and that's suspiciously close to Skink cohort level. Melee attack begins at 34, which is an entirely decent number in a Slaanesh roster. Very interestingly, attack interval 3.9 seconds is a somewhat significant chunk faster than the 4.2 of the Norscan Marauders, which tracks very closely with standard Empire infantry in the latter case. So, Slaanesh Marauders get their damage out at a consistently faster clip. It's mild, but it adds up. Infinite number of monkeys and typewriters, yada yada. Predictably, there is zero splash damage. Melee Defense 28 is a figure we could expect from other varieties of basic Marauders. Weapon Strength 28, likewise, split base 21 and armor piercing 7. Just so you understand, 2-to-1 is a ratio skin wolves get. This is 3-to-1. It's not nothing, but it slows performance against serious units. Charge bonus of 18 is like regular Marauders, and mass is 100. Being Slaanesh means not only do they have Hide and Forest, but they have Strider, so no movement penalties period, and no combat penalties from shallow water, and immunity to psychology, so neither fear nor terror shake them. Absent some very special stuff that comes from Dechala more than not, so they aren't likely to suffer from this part. Remember, this is a whip your foes and whip your friends faction. Speaking of her, Decala's faction-wide benefits before even getting to Lord perks are upkeep minus 15% and physical resistance plus 10%. Again, faction-wide. This means that her Marauders, which are already low armor high HP relative to Empire Swordsmen, are walking around with physical resistance 15%. This is jacked up even further in an army with Styrkaar Swordsvinner in it. Despite these bonuses, Dechala still counts as a demonic faction. Therefore, low winds of magic in a given army will nerf physical resistance by 10% no matter what kind of unit is evident. All of a sudden, you've lost a serious advantage against what's still a huge amount of enemies in the game. So now that we have those very important issues raised, let's look at these spears. Recruited for 500 gold and 125 upkeep, and that's 15% less upkeep under Dechala. Same entities, same health, same armor 15, same wait, it has shields! I mention this because the key point I drilled home about Norscan Marauder spears is that they do not have shields, greatly harming their targeting potential against Order factions with lots of range. This unit lacks that weakness, and catching 35% of arrows with your shield rather than your head is making your meat shield meatier. We proceed to melee attack 28. Despite being 6 less than basic Marauders, let's keep in mind, or place in mind, the Empire Spearman begins with a melee attack of 20. Melee attack 28 is actually really good for this kind of unit. Attack interval 4.1 seconds may be worse than the regular variant, and what's the attack interval for Empire Spear? It's 5.7 seconds. Granted, you're paying for the privilege, but you're absolutely getting something with this unit, despite the relatively miserable 15 armor. Also, put bluntly, this is your main anti-large unit for quite a while. No splash damage, by the way. Melee defense arrives at 32, or 4 better, which is not a huge uplift, but brings us to the eternal mediocrity level of the Empire Swordsman. Where we see the big disparity is in weapon strength of 25, split base 20, and armor piercing 5, which is equal to the damage from the Empire Spearman, and indeed, many spear units. The bonus versus large is 15, which is about what we'd expect. This means melee attack 43 and weapon strength 40 versus Centaurs, but that base to AP ratio being preserved is 4 base to 1 AP. Despite the Ogre charge mechanic hurting, this is a really good unit against Ogre bulls, and so on. Charge bonus is a pathetic 6, and mass is 100 per entity. In addition to Strider and immunity to psychology, this is also a charge defense versus large and charge reflection unit. I know people like to discount anvils with this faction, but this is an actual serious low armor anvil. Before moving on, let's go over the Princes of Perfection, quite a name for just a regiment of renown for the Spears variant. Recruited for 750 gold, 188 upkeep, there are a number of improvements. The shields are now blocking 55% of small arms fire from the front, making them far more resistant to even basic archer fire, though don't overestimate. Leadership of 70 is 10 better at rank 9, melee attack of 36 is 8 better, and this is a unit with Soporific Musk, which is tremendously valuable for its melee attack and defense -5 contact effect for 10 seconds each application, through whacking. Melee defense 41 is 9 better at its rank 9 state, giving you a good look what the regular unit could start to look like at max rank. Finally, on top of all the usual benefits, this unit has perfect Vigour, which is highly impressive. You can send it up walls and it'll fight at full capacity. The Hell Scourges variant flaunts itself at 550 gold equivalent, recruit, and 138 upkeep before Dechala reduction if present. All of the basics are present, including shields. Note that at no point have these Marauders had the Norscan Rage mechanic, which shouldn't be some shock. It isn't the Norscan roster, I'm just mentioning. So we get to melee attack 30 or 4 worse than the regular version, and every melee whipping inflicts poison on foes in a faction that is not Nurgle. That's -15% speed and -15% to melee and technically ranged damage, but good luck shooting a bow with a whip distracting you. Attack interval of 4 seconds is right at the standard line between the other options, but on the good side compared to infantry like Empire Swordsmen, Dwarf Warriors, etc. No splash damage. Melee defense of 38 is a full 10 better than the normal version, and a full 6 better than the Spears had, and usually it's Spears you go to for a big defensive boost. Weapon strength 30 is 2 better than the standard split base 26 and armor piercing 4 damage, which is a massively lopsided ratio in favor of base damage. So it's crazy strong at fighting low tier opponents. Mileage is going to come to a screeching halt against armored opposition. Charge bonus is 18, same as the originals, and mass is 100 again. This unit has Strider and immunity to psychology too. This will be standard roster-wide. Having said that, it also has expert charge defense and charge reflection, meaning it can deny the charge bonuses of chariots, cavalry, and bloodletters of corn, and hit back for double damage while charge bonuses are active. Wait, that's actually really nice. Actually, this version is a tier 2 unit in a Tormentor's hold, one of the only 2 ways for Dechala to recruit them at all, so it is treated like a superior version of the regular stuff. The low armor piercing is a weakness to be clear, but to have a low-end meat shield unit be this strong, and fully capable of sealing your flanks if that's a thing, yes, this is in the Slaanesh roster. Well, let me put it this way. Spears and Hell Scourges are a lot more valuable in Tides of Torment just because devotees with crossbows exist, and you already had options for allied forces to contribute some good ranged units, granted without their buffs, but your devotees don't have anything for that either. It's just their raw stats. In the Redline skills, this is a tale of 2 Lord varieties. If you're using a Mortal Lord, including the shiny new Chaos Sorcerer Lords, then you can use Chaos Vanguard for melee attack +8 and armor +12 at 3 pips. Since armor is a key weakness, being able to address it at such a low investment, and at the Mammoth, or War Mammoth, value of +8 melee attack, this is a strong option. Legion of Doom would take any rank 7 survivors up to armor +10 more, melee defense +5, and spell resistance +20% to boot. All demonic lords, and for redline skills, Dechala is included in this despite her unique circumstances. Hellish Stride at 3 pips gives armor +8 and speed +8%. I had viewed this as a much weaker option, but the more I see it in action, the more I appreciate that speed increase, and more armor is still very useful. Acolytes of Hedonism gives them leadership +5, where they are not a hugely high leadership bunch, melee defense +5, and physical resistance +10%. That is, on top of what Dechala and Styrkaar can provide, and that's subject to the Low Winds nerf. but even without those considerations, 5 up to 15% is impactful. In the tech tree, I'll focus on current Slaanesh because there is one very, very big deal here. For a while, there was a tech that granted them Soporific Musk generally. That is gone. With Dechala, the Lord meant to buff them more, her faction mechanics more than make up for it, and Soporific Musk can be obtained from other sources, like the Princes of Perfection. But it makes those other sources more valuable, and Styrkaar has an especially strong version personally. Slaanesh Fighters grants leadership plus 6. Do not discount the power of this, because this is not a high leadership unit until you start slapping on things like that. Decadent Apostles grants armor plus 10, which combines with the redline skills, and missile resistance plus 10%, which normally takes having somebody like Gorok as your lord. Given that these are all shielded units with a meat shield role, this is stupidly powerful at making them stronger in that role, except pure melee factions like Vampire Counts, or at least it's all melee or spells, and this doesn't help versus the spells part per se. Armor can a little. Marvelous Executioners is a blanket offensive buff, providing melee attack plus 4 and weapon strength plus 10%. Dechala offers mortal units in her army specifically plus 10% weapon strength regardless, but these increases track the armor-piercing ratio. Blasphemous Promises gives melee defense plus 4 and speed plus 10%. Now, this was already fairly fast infantry as a base value. The extra defense and speed makes them unusually fast tar pit units with a somewhat decent, given the roster, offensive output against appropriate targets. Mortal Obsession gets you upkeep minus 10% and 1 turn less recruitment time in global recruitment, but that takes a while to get to and competes with critical economic techs. I suggest using Chaos Sorcerers to steal technology once you're set up better. Now, getting back to Dechala, she can bring a whole lot of further boosts, the capstone going as far as to grant Rage from the Norskin roster to rank 7 and up Marauders in her personal army, but short of that, we're looking at 1 pip for melee attack and defense plus 6, plus immunity to all contact effects, like poison but loss of others too, and Eroding Poison, which will replace the poison on the Hell Scourges. It's a ton like Skarsnik's Death Juice, with a small damage over time effect, but that will help whittle down even Phoenix Scar. Also, like Skarsnik's Death Juice, the real hidden play is to double up with Poison, the regular kind, for minus 30% speed and minus 30% weapon strength and missile strength. This means using some kind of poison unit that is not using Eroding Poison, which means not Dechala, not other Marauders, not Marauder Cavalry, and not Hellstriders. Seekers of Slaanesh would do, for instance. Styrkaar does his own buffs, brings enhanced Soporific Musk in melee at a certain point, and just plain gets ridiculous with a Marauder force, and this isn't dependent on Dechala or even Monogod Slaanesh. So how do we use Devoted Marauders? Well, I've just explained that they range from cost-efficient tar pits to much better tar pits and semi-killy meat shields than they have any business being, including just having a basic Chaos Lord of some kind, leading them and using Chaos Vanguard. Your real problem using them will eternally be damage, in particular, armor-piercing damage, which is why Dechala granting a poison dot is such a dirty spoiler-style trick. They're punching way above their mass 100. So what's important to understand is that yes, they're fast tar pit units, but 2 of the 3 varieties need to be stationary to take advantage of a defense mechanic, and once committed to the mosh pit, they may fight the enemy to a standstill, but they're not hammer units. They just aren't. They do not come equipped to wipe out blobs, they aren't there to bash Temple Guardian, the spears will struggle against armored cavalry, the Hell Scourges will struggle to deal with great swords offensively, and so on and so forth. This is such a basic feature of the faction, you need to be acutely aware of it. So, to preview other videos about hammer units, it's simple in the end. Magic is nice, but your solutions are Daemonettes and Demonic Cavalry. I'm including Chariots in that for convenience. I say this having tried a lot of methods. There are armor-piercing characters, but not all of them are, or only on particular mounts, and overall you have a lot of practical problems without a demonic presence to offset your meat shields. Having said that, meat shields are making the rest of it better. They're most certainly not your only options for meat shields. They're just the cost-efficient ones, and the minimum you can contribute to the cause. That's how you should approach it, because considering the cost, and considering Dechala lowers that cost by 15% just by being your leader, and no, I haven't gone into any economic back-end technologies, well, you could do a lot worse, and you don't have to. Even if they trade well, don't expect Marauders to crush your enemies unaided. Even if it is true for a very particular case, it'll lead to bad habits and you don't want that. These are anvils, you want hammers working with them, and the anvils are making the hammers healthier. Take care and have fun frustrating your opponents so that you get the satisfaction.